Hey everybody, welcome back to Dorm Squad Sports, college sports podcast focused on Alabama athletics. I'm Dakota, as always, here with Brian and Oakley. It's been a couple weeks since we've had an episode out and a lot's happened. Most of this episode is going to revolve around the NFL Combine that's coming up. We're also going to talk a little bit about the AAF, and depending on time, we might pick up on basketball because Ty's actually been doing good the past couple games as opposed to the rest of the time that we've been missing the podcast. But let's focus up on the news, and it's been some pretty bad news. There's been 3 Alabama players injured since leading up to the Combine. Of course, Deontay Thompson, he's out for pretty much everything. Josh Jacobs, I think he had a groin injury, so there's going to be some things that he misses. And Q has a finger injury, should only miss bench press, though, for Q. Of course, he's probably going to be one of the bigger or earliest draft picks. I don't think he needs a Combine as much as other people. But how much do y'all think this hurts Jacobs or Thompson?
I don't really think it hurts Jacobs a whole lot. I think, the scouts, they like what they see with him on film. I think it hurts Thompson a little more, but then again, I don't think it's like I don't think it's like, they're going to destroy his stock or anything. They'll all be all right, especially Quinn and Jacobs, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And the only thing with Jacobs is people don't really need to worry about, his speed. So, I'm not sure what drills he's going to be missing with a groin injury. I would assume he might have to miss the 40 for it. If he does miss the 40, that's not why people are going to draft Jacobs. They're going to draft him based on his film. So he doesn't have to prove anything with the 40 time because he's going to have a bad 40 time anyways. He's a freaking bulldozer. He's not supposed to run fast.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite thing with Thompson, in my opinion, because his film in the second half of the season wasn't that good compared to the first couple of games that he played. And you were kind of hoping that he could show out athletically because he is athletic. He's tall, he's rangy, he's fast, and that's what helped him get on the field at Bama. Of course, he was like junior, but still, he made plays. And if you get on the field at all at Bama, then you're doing something right. But anyway, this was kind of his time to maybe go up a little bit in the draft boards, just because I think a lot of draft guys felt he was a little underwhelming in the second half.
Yeah, not only do they think he was underwhelming when you watch the film, but they also think he's undersized. So this is what's really going to hurt him. If he could go in and measure, which I'm not sure if he's going to, but with a wrist injury, obviously you can go get your height and weight. And honestly, I think more people are going to be worried about that with Thompson than what he could be doing in drills. Because, I think he'll still have to miss his pro day, but he's going to get workouts. So he's going to get to go show these teams what he has. And he has, a year's worth of film. And there's a lot of good film that will say I'm at least worth a top, 2-round pick. But the fact that they can't get that height and weight in, assuming he doesn't go in to measure, that's going to be the biggest thing that hurts him, in my mind.
I don't really think there's anything to worry about his heights.
His weight. It's
Earl
just
Thomas is, maybe not as much of now, but this past decade he's been one of the best safeties in the NFL, and he's 5'10". Eddie Jackson's probably 5'11", and I think Deontay Thompson's taller than Eddie Jackson.
Yeah, it's mostly just the fact that there's not any meat on his bones, really.
I think Deontay Thompson's thicker than Eddie Jackson too.
Really?
And I think he's thicker than Earl Thomas. Looks it to me.
He just looks like leaner. He looks like compared to all the other people because I think he is a little taller. And so rangy. Dante Hall is 6'9", but he looks so much taller just because of how skinny his arms and legs are compared to how tall he is.
Yeah.
And Deontay, he didn't have a great second half of the season, but I'm not really worried about his physicality either because he would come up and make some tackles. And he didn't have a great second half of the year, but I especially remember I think it was the first second play of the Clemson game in 2018 when we played him in the semifinal game. I think first second play, Thompson, he was replacing Hootie Jones, the starter, and he comes up and sticks a running back on the first play of the game, so on a swing pass. So Thompson, he'll be fine. He may fall some because of his play in the second half, but in the long term, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, I also think that I think this almost definitely takes him out of first round consideration, though, because he was right there on the fence anyways. So unless he has enough time to get completely healthy and have just one team that he just wows in a workout, I think he's going to cement himself in a second-round pick. But also you have to think about some Alabama players that make, later-round picks who become stars. Landon Collins wasn't a first-round pick. Eddie Jackson wasn't a first-round pick. Of course, Collins, it just was how the draft fell. Eddie Jackson was an injury, and they're both, all-pro talent right now. So, it's not where you get drafted at 2, you get drafted 2, so I'm not too concerned. Let's go ahead and continue with the position breakdown. We're scheduled to do wide receivers and tight ends this episode. Wide receivers, honestly, we don't even need to focus too much time on it because all of our starters are returning. There's not a whole lot of shift that we need to worry about. What I am concerned about is the tight end position because we're losing Irv Smith and Hill Henches this year, and we don't really have a receiving tight end on the roster anymore. I mean, no one that I can think of at least.
Miller Forrestall will be the closest thing you'll have. That's mostly what he did earlier in his career at Bama. He's not much of a blocking tight end, especially like Hale. And, I mean, he's closer to Irv, but, you can tell he's much more undersized than both of those guys.
I think we'll be fine at the tight end position next year. Forrestall, he's lost some weight this offseason. Think he's probably gonna have a bigger role, and he's gonna be a good receiving threat. Not sure what the situation with Kedrick James is gonna turn out to be, but I think that guy will for sure be our best tight end once he gets cleared from his suspensions. But until then, you'll have guys like Miller Forrestall, Major Tennyson, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him try out one of the defensive linemen or outside linebackers at tight end. Ben Davis.
I mean, if we're lacking, we've moved people around before. That'd be a big move, but I mean, we've done crazier things.
Yeah, that was like he made the biggest jump on the roster in weight. He went up 22 pounds from the end of last season. Also notable, Evan Neal, I think he checked in at 360. It's a big man.
I mean, let's be honest. Ben Davis doesn't seem like he's going to get the time at linebacker, so might as well try him somewhere else. It couldn't hurt. He can't get less playing time than he's already had.
Yeah, good point. No offense to Ben Davis, but, I mean, whenever you make a move, I mean, if Nick Saban tells you to do it or you leave. And if you do it, it's going to be the best thing for you. Ask anyone who started corner move to safety, or ask Jalston Fowler started running back move to fullback. If Nick Saban says you need to move.
Jalston Fowler actually started at linebacker, then moved to running back, then moved to fullback.
Yeah, so, I mean, Saban's never wrong when it comes to stuff like that. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the combine. So we've talked a little bit about Thompson, but Brian, who else needs to have a good combine in your eyes?
I think probably one of the biggest guys is Mack Wilson. He needs to have a good combine. As a lot of guys have said, the film was, Mack Wilson just didn't take that step that a lot of guys expected him to take this season. In fact, I think he probably took a step back. And I'm not sure if it was him. I'm not sure if it was, new young defensive coordinator, new young inside linebackers coach, or if it was just him calling the defense. But something was definitely wrong there. But he's one of the guys, I think. Other than that, everybody else, they seem to do what they do. I mean, everybody really needs to have a good combine, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, there's 3 big things that happen in combines. There's the drills themselves, the 40 or 3 cone, all those things. There's the interviews where you have to go talk to the people who are going to draft you and they, put you through the ringer. And then there's just the measurements. So in terms of measurements, I think Jonah Williams, and of course we already got his measurements in, but he definitely needed something. A lot of people have been talking about if he needs to move to guard or even center or possibly right tackle because they're afraid he's undersized. And the big 2 things with him are his weight and his arm length. And his arm length came in at 33 and 5 inches. That's a little bit too small for the average guy. Of course, I still think he's good enough to play offensive tackle. He's got the footwork. And then his weight is 302. And the thing with Williams is he's talked about the fact that if he doesn't eat like a pig, he loses weight so fast. Like, he could probably be our size if he just ate like a normal human being. He has to eat so much to keep that weight up. So it's definitely going to be a challenge for him. But in terms of the other things you look at, I think Damian Harris really needs it. Of course, he has 4 years of wear and tear at the running back position. That's really going to scare scouts. And the fact that, someone who played behind him at Bama is now number 1 in the draft board and like he was playing above him, you can say that's, tip of the cap to how good Damian Harris is and how respected he is. But also, you weren't the best running back on your team, if we're going to be perfectly honest. But another good thing about Harris is I feel like when you get him in the room for an interview, he's going to just destroy it because he is definitely a high character guy. I can't picture getting him in a hotel room and talking to him for 15 minutes and not wanting to draft him and put him in your locker room. He's just that kind of a personality that I think a lot of GMs and a lot of coaches are really going to be attracted towards. Yeah. Anybody else we're missing, really? All right. So let's go and talk about, Bama and the AAF. So the obviously Alliance of American Football is pretty much like a developmental league for the NFL, even though they're not associated with the NFL yet. And it's where you see a lot of Alabama players who aren't quite ready to make the NFL take their stay. So we decided to do a top 5 Alabama players you wish would be on the AAF. Now, this doesn't mean you hope that they have a bad NFL career or you think that they're going to. This is just, out of the people who are possible to be on the AAF, who are like fringe NFL players, out of those, who would be the most fun to watch pretty much. So I'll go ahead and do mine, just like explain it. So I put at 5 Lester Cotton. I don't know where he's going to get drafted, if he's going to get drafted. And also the Birmingham Iron are incredibly close to having 5 people, like an entire Alabama offensive line. And we need a couple guards, so I want that to happen. Number 4, I put Hale Henches because he's not really getting any draft talk. So if he wants to play in football for a living, it's definitely a place for him. 3, Bo Scarborough. He, of course, I believe he was drafted by the Cowboys and was on their practice squad. Then I think he got moved. Isn't he in Seattle now?
I believe so.
So he's mostly practice squad. He might have gotten moved up, but he hasn't taken an NFL snap yet. So obviously I would much rather him be the Seahawks running back in the future. But if you're not going to do that, AAF's a great place. Even if it's not for the Birmingham Iron, because of course we have Trent Richardson, just a good place. Number 2, A.J. McCarron. This one's never going to happen because A.J. McCarron's getting paid like $3 million a year to not play football right now. But if you were going to do it, you might as well. It'd be fun to see him just be able to get a starting quarterback role because we all thought it would happen in the NFL this year. And then he didn't win the Bills spot, got traded to his team, and he just, sits. And plus, he's in a Raiders uniform. Raiders uniform looks a lot like the Birmingham Iron uniform. So just take like a couple of badge switches and you're done. And then number 1, Tony Brown, of course, he was undrafted last year. He's getting playing time and I hope that progresses. But it just seems like he's, 1 or 2 bad plays away from not staying in the NFL. And if that does happen, a personality like him is just geared towards the AAF.
Imagine having Tony Brown mic'd up for a game.
Oh God, they would have to disable his mic by the end of the first punt. They would have to disable it, and I am 100% here for it. So I am Crazy Tony to the Birmingham Iron. I am on the bandwagon. So you can go and take it over.
All right. Yeah, like Cody said, I'm not wanting these people to do bad at all. I hope they all succeed and have great careers in the NFL. But if they don't, I would love to see these players on the Birmingham Iron. Number 5, I have a guy that actually hasn't finished his time at Bama yet. I'm not trying to crap talk Ben Davis so much this episode. It just kind of happened. But if he does not get a chance at Bama to prove as much as he would like how good he is, I would love to see him play in the Birmingham Iron just because I want to see what he can do when he's given the opportunity. Number 4, Bo Scarborough. He really hasn't done a whole lot at all in the NFL. And I just feel like if he doesn't take that step this year, he'd be a good one to replace Trent to go to the AAF. If Trent, I'm assuming Trent goes back to the NFL, which I guess I'm really hoping right now. Number 3, I have Jake Coker. What an awesome personality to come back to Bama and just be the quarterback for us again. Quotation marks us. Jake Coker's is a guy that everybody's always liked, and I would love to have him as our quarterback. Louis Perez is awesome, but Jake Coker's our boy. Okay. And number 2, I have Tony Brown for all the reasons me and Cody just said. It would be so much fun to have Tony Brown mic'd up for a whole game. There's no telling what would come out of his mouth. And number 1, AJ still has a chance in the NFL, and he's still getting paid. So, I mean, good for him. But if he decided to come to the Birmingham Iron, I would be 100% all there for it.
For real. And a non-Alabama player, Johnny Manziel, he can't play in the CFL anymore. I would love to see him on the Atlanta Legends. Just going to put it out there. I mean, the way quarterbacks are, you're drafted, so it doesn't really matter where you're from. Everyone else is pretty much a feeder school. But quarterbacks, it's just whoever picks you. And Atlanta Legends, they have the worst quarterback play in the entire league. I mean, you literally can't do worse.
I would love to see that happen.
But, I mean,
Who's quarterback? Is it Sims?
Sims, and then Murray's their backup. And Murray's the most successful quarterback in Georgia history for the Atlanta Legends, and he's still not getting a chance. And Sims is straight trash.
That team Hackenberg plays for.
Is it Memphis?
Yeah, that he's worse than Sims.
Yeah, but Hackenberg's backup is Mettenberger, and Mettenberger's he had a pretty good.
Mettenberger's the starter now.
Yeah, and he's playing pretty well. And I don't know. I would say Atlanta's in a worst case scenario.
Atlanta's running back played quarterback in college. He's actually on the cover of NCAA 14. Denard Robinson, he was a quarterback for Michigan, now plays running back for Atlanta. So if worst comes to worst, maybe.
Yeah, they're just going to draft any person who could possibly play quarterback. So, that's where Mac Wilson might go if he doesn't make it in the NFL. Because, I mean, you never know. But, okay, let's talk about the AAF a little bit more. Are there any things, because, I was talking about this with my family, the Alliance, they do a lot of different things that the NFL doesn't do. Is there any specific rules that they have that y'all want to see move to the NFL next year?
Not particularly yet, at least. One thing, this is just one thing about the rules, but I do like how they go to the booth and show what the replay guys are saying. Mm-hmm. But I will say this, either they are getting terrible angles or they are blind up there because they get most of those calls wrong.
I mean, I think one of the reasons people like the AAF so much is because a different style of football. The rules are a little different, and I think that's what some of the attraction. Obviously, the other part of the attraction is because it's in the off season when the main football, college football, NFL is being played. But I would like to see more people mic'd up in the NFL. I just love hearing what they hear down on the field.
Yeah, I also, honestly, the only rule that I don't like that I wouldn't transfer to the NFL is the whole, illegal defense. You can't blitz in certain scenarios or with, so many people. Obviously, in the NFL, you can't do that. But I like the onside kick rule. I like the fact that you have to, go for a fourth down and get an onside kick. I like that there's no extra points. I like that there's no commercials. I like you get to hear everyone. The challenges are a little dumb, but besides that, I love it so much.
Yeah, on the mic up thing, I know they don't go to it during live NFL games. They do have a segment on NFL Network every week of players who are mic'd up. But also what you said, I agree, I do a lot of that stuff. But I just wonder how much that would change if you were actually hardcore invested into a team. Say you score a touchdown down by 1, well now you got to go for 2. It makes for great entertainment, but at the same time.
But also, I mean, the way that kicking play right now in the NFL is, I mean, if I were a team, I'd probably go for 2 every time anyways. But
if I was Alabama, I'd go for 2 every time.
Dang right, especially with our offense. But, all right, one last thing before we wrap it up. Let's just talk about Alabama basketball. Of course, we had a bit of a rough stretch, and then we got, a cleanup win against Vanderbilt, able to go to South Carolina and beat the Gamecocks. Where do y'all gauge where Alabama basketball is right now?
Yeah, I don't want to get into the X and O's a whole lot because, I think we kind of are who we are at this point. But as far as the tournament position, I think we need to win one of these next 2 games against Auburn and LSU to ensure our spot. Mm-hmm. And I really do think if we win one of these 2 games between LSU and Auburn that we are in the NCAA tournament no matter what happens. And it would also be nice if we would win a game in the SEC tournament to just bump us up to, maybe the I'm not sure exactly what seed would be, but hopefully around like a 9 or an 8, maybe if we could get to that 19 win mark, depending on who we beat.
Yeah, I mean, we're Bama basketball. We live on the bubble. So, I mean, I think Bryant's probably right about winning one of these next 2 games. Obviously, it'd be great to win one in the tournament because you don't want to be in one of those play-in games. But I would take a play-in game over the NIT any day.
For real. Now, I will say this. I've been talking to Lucas. He's one of the main guys on Busting Brackets, the website I'm on. He's their main bracketology guy. He knows it, just as good as about anybody I know. And he says the only way for Alabama to lock it is 2 wins. So you can either, split the LSU and Auburn results and then win your other game in the regular season, or you can, win them both, or you can, get one of those 3 wins somehow and then win your first SEC tournament game. But he says we need 2 wins instead of 1.
I understand where that's coming from to be considered a lock, and maybe it could be considered like 100% lock maybe. But like if we win one of the next 2, unless our opponents that are quadrant, unless our quadrant 2 opponents just melt down and become quadrant 3 opponents, and some quadrant 1 team we beat becomes quadrant 2, stuff like that. I still think a win against. LSU.
I will say LSU.
LSU's a quadrant 1 team, correct?
Yeah, they should be.
Kentucky's quadrant 1. I mean, we're talking like that's the type of team we would be beating if we beat.
Yeah, if it's LSU, I think that should be a lock. Auburn by itself, I don't think would be a lock because I'm not sure, but I feel like Auburn would be a quadrant 2 win instead of a quadrant 1.
I'm not as high on Auburn, but for some reason the net system rating, they do like Auburn.
Yeah.
So and that's what this is all coming down to. So.
Yeah, Auburn, all they do is shoot the lights out. Like, if they can, I'm pretty sure they shoot more 3s than 2s right now. And if they're hitting, then you literally can't get back in the game. But if they're missing, then it gets real ugly real fast.
They're tied with 27 seconds left against Georgia.
Oh.
Right now.
I don't see why we can't get this Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, Auburn's going to be, that should be a good win if we get that. But I think LSU is like the win that we have to get if we want to, set it in stone. Okay, we paused it to see if Auburn would win or lose, and Auburn just won by 3, but we're not even sad about it. So that's going to wrap up this episode, Dorm Squad. Make sure y'all subscribe on Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure you subscribe there. Follow us on Twitter. Just wherever you're seeing this, make sure you keep seeing it. And y'all have a happy week. Hopefully Alabama gets a couple wins by the next time we put a podcast out, and roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.